Hi, it's Irnise. I'm really excited to share this presentation with you all. I created this presentation specifically for the clients who are in business, who are looking to understand how to automate their small business even more. I know a lot of us are using so many different systems, calendars, booking through your website, and a lot of different other resources that we have, but we still want to figure out how we can automate our business even more. You'll be surprised a little bit at what is inside of this presentation, but not really, because these are things that we've talked about. But essentially, automation is built off of something very, very strategic, which I think we talked about usually in our first few meetings. And I think we need to sometimes step back to that foundation to help us understand how we can automate the process for ourselves. So we're going to talk a little bit about the foundation of automation, which is basically systems. We'll talk about how to build and implement effective systems, and then evaluating the effectiveness of the systems that you have in place. And I think understanding that automation is built off of systems helps you understand that there is no easy way. You cannot skip steps to get to this process. You have to solely focus, right, on building the system. And we're going to talk about how we do that. So the foundation of automation is systems, right? And we put and implement systems into our businesses to help us save time, to help us save energy, to be able to essentially outsource some of those services so that we don't have to do them ourselves, to build a team, to hire people. Essentially, you may eventually want to be completely out of the business and the business is running itself. And so that may be why you want to make things more automated. To create structure. Structure ensures that things are replicable, that you can duplicate those processes, and either you want to open up a second business, if you want to expand services, it's important that you have that structure. So automation is built solely on systems, and we'll talk a little bit more on how to build that. So when you talk about how to build and implement effective systems, you want to first identify what is going on in your business and what type of system you're going to create. And then, of course, the next phase is to create the system, to put the pieces together, to look at all the resources that you have or that you will potentially need and decide how you're going to make this work effectively for your team within the cost parameters of what you're trying to get done and with the time parameters that you're trying to get done. And then we want to review them. Sometimes we identify and we create, but we never review. We never evaluate to see if this is actually effective. And in that, we don't improve our processes or our systems because we're never evaluating them. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what that looks like and how to improve the systems that you already have in place, and then to create a systemic way of identifying, creating, and reviewing future systems. So let's talk about identification. Identifying systems and creating systems, you want to first look at the entry points into your business. If that's through your website, that's through social media, if that's through word of mouth. Those are the entry points into your business. If you're promoting your business and you're outside on the street and you're telling someone, hey, this is how you should contact me, that's an entry point. And you want to be systemic even in the way that you reach out and talk to people about your business. If someone is coming to your website, we talk about that. We want to make sure the website is clear, that we understand what's above the fold. You want to make it easy for people to book appointments. You want to know what services that you provide and what they'll be paying for. You want to make sure that if they're booking through your website, which may be another entry point, that they understand, right, how this process works and they have all the information that they need and there are no blind spots. They may be calling a phone number. If they're calling a phone number, you want to make sure there's someone else on the other side of that phone line. And that's not a number that's just going to your cell phone where you're unable to answer it. That is something that you need to understand as well. So entry points into your business is what you need to identify. Then you want to look at the different types of clients that are served, right? So you look at the people who are your ideal client. And we talked about that in the beginning of our relationship, right? When we first started working together. You want, of course, to focus your services on your ideal client. But as we all know, many times we end up servicing a lot of different clients, and how you service them may be different based on what their needs are. And so if you're offering different types of services, if you're dealing with different demographics, you may understand that the clients that you serve, that process may be different for each type of client. And so you want to be conscious of that. You want to understand and identify that so that you can then put a system in place for each specific type of client, each specific type of service, and understand how that experience will work for the client. You want to know who is responsible. As small business owners, many of us are solely responsible for 90% of all of what we do. We may have a partner, we may have a virtual assistant, we may have one employee in the beginning, but at the end of the day, we may be responsible for most of what is happening. Because of that, we want to be conscious of the experience that our clients are having, knowing that we may be the only person who's responsible. And so we want to talk about that. What does that look like for you to be responsible for all of these tasks? Should you be the person who's responsible for these tasks? Could we offload some of these things? And we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. We also want to understand the process, right? If I'm calling a phone number and no one answers, is there a way to leave a message? If I'm sending a DM, how long will it be for someone to get back to me? Do you have an automated message that goes out to people? If I'm, sending you an email, if I'm booking through your site, is there a confirmation? Is there a way for me to reschedule? All of those things are a part of the process, and we want to identify what that process looks like and know every step of the way so that we can identify pain points, clarify, fix, evaluate, and maybe adjust things as time goes on. And I spoke a little bit about this as well. We want to know what the experience is like. People want flow and ease of process. If I go to your site and it takes a long time to load, if I go to book and I am unable to find the link or the ways to make an appointment, if I call, nobody answers or calls me back, think about that experience for your clients. Is that something that you want for them, especially when it's coming through their initial interaction with your business? Then you want to understand the follow through. If someone has booked an appointment, if someone has purchased a product, you want to know what the entire process is. So now that they've booked an appointment, now that they've purchased the product, what happens on the other side of that process? And then how do you close the loop to make sure that they're fully satisfied with the services that they received? And then the closeout, right? And so all of this identification process, it bleeds together because it's somewhat of a circle and it doesn't really end. And you want to make sure that people's experience and the way they engage with your business is one that is positive so that you can get reviews, so that you can then have that social proof and grow your business. All right. Entry points. So we mentioned this. It's the phone, email, word of mouth, website, booking links, social media, text message. You want to identify for your business all of the entry points that you have, and then you want to focus on what that experience is like in each process. If it's through the phone, what happens when someone emails? What happens when you speak to someone in person? How do you easily share your information without having to tell them a bunch of sites to go to or go to my Instagram or go? Is there a way that you can create a digital card that you can then just send them a link? Is there a way that you can create a digital card where you can get their email and then send that information to their email, and now you have their information so that you can reach back out to them and circle back out and close up the process? If it's through your website or your booking links or through social media or text message, you want to make sure that you understand all of the entry points to your business, that you identify them, and that someone, we'll talk a little bit about that, is responsible. So if you're using Facebook and you never look at your Facebook messages, you may be missing out on opportunities to engage with clients. If you never check your DMs, if you don't realize that the requests, you have to go in there and tap them and then read them and accept them for you to engage, you may be missing out on clients. If people are unable to reach you by phone, you may be missing out on clients. And so you want to identify those areas so that you can then create a process that makes sense for you. Then you want to look at the clients that you serve. Most of us serve our business to consumers. So B2C, we are the business and we're serving individual clients, right? But many of us want to get to the level where we're B2B, where we're serving actual other businesses. So you as a business are serving a business who then has individual clients underneath that. But your money, the exchange of information, the exchange of pay comes from that business. Your vendors, whoever you work with, right? They're also your clients, and you want to make sure that there's a positive experience for them as well, that they know how to reach you, that they know how to contact you if there are any issues or any delays, that you guys have a working relationship and an understanding of how things work together. your partners, if there are investors who are in your business, if there are partners who are in your business, or if there are people who are just supporting you, those are also considered somewhat of your client because you also have an exchange of information with them and you want to make sure that it's positive as well. And then of course, anyone who you hire, if that's employees or independent contractors, if that's, short-term temp people, interns, whatever, those are also considerably your clients. Now let's talk about responsibility. This is a huge part that I think that we fail to identify. As new business owners, as small business owners, and even as we grow our business, we are mainly responsible for a lot of what happens. As we begin to outsource some of those services, we are still responsible for what happens on the other side of that. And so if you have a phone service, right? I use a phone service. I don't answer any phone calls. No phone calls come to my phone. My office number directly goes through a receptionist service. That gives me an ease of process. I'm always in my email. So when a client calls, they leave their information. I am then able to directly email them a link to book, directly email and tell them, I don't service that area, but here's a referral. Or if it's something that's a little bit more complicated or time consuming, I can send it to my virtual assistant and tell her to respond to it when she has time. I try to make sure that the ease of use for those who are calling my office are something that that is not a barrier to them receiving service or being able to contact me. So having a number that connected directly to my phone was not beneficial because I was the only person responsible. I wasn't always in a position to answer phone calls. People call you and they try to waste your time. And then it's not essentially the most effective or efficient way for people to get information. So for me, outsourcing and using a reception versus a phone service, having someone just call the phone line, made sure that I am not just essentially responsible for that portion, but I am responsible for the overall process. So I had to create a script. I had to say, okay, these are the types of clients I serve. These are the services that I provide. These are where I service clients. If this happens, then this should go here. If this happens, then you should do this. If someone calls back to back, then you should do this, right? And that had to be done based on the information that I provided. Yes, I am still completely responsible, even though I've handed off a portion of that process to someone else. Email management. That is something that a lot of people struggle with. I joked about it on my personal Facebook with some friends. And in reality, a lot of people struggle with email management. If you're in business, you have to stay on top of your emails. You have to figure out a way that is most effective for you, that you can make sure that you're responding appropriately to people, that if people have questions, that if people are reaching out to partner, to collaborate, or whatever the case may be, that you are staying on top of that information. If that is not something that you can handle, then you want to make sure that there's someone on your team who can be responsible for that process. Appointment confirmation and follow-up. That's another area. You want to make sure that you have someone specified and responsible for that process. Even if you're using a booking link, you want to make sure that they are sending reminders, that if people need to cancel, that there's an easy option, and that if people have a service, that then you then are able to follow up with them, right? So that appointment confirmation and follow-up process, someone needs to be responsible for that. Social media management. It is something that is very difficult for a lot of people. People think that it comes easy for me because I was able to grow my social media so quick, but it is a lot of work. It is exhausting. I want to quit every single week. The algorithm changes, this changes, that changes. They add new features. All of these things are happening and they're happening to me as well. And so for me, it is easier for me to use my brand and my voice to reach out because it's very original. And it's not something that I feel that I want to hand over. But if social media management is something that you don't want to be responsible for, hiring someone is okay. But you need to understand what your process is. You need to be able to tell the person who's going to manage your social media what the plan is, what you're trying to get across, what your goal is, and then allow them to create a plan. But that may be difficult if you have not tested the waters and you don't have analytics to support what it is that you want to do. The process. We talk about processes all the time. For me, I like to refer to them as workflows. When you think about them as a workflow, you understand that there's a first, in the beginning, a middle, and an end. And in that, you kind of continuously work through that process in your head and you understand what that looks like for your client. You want to think about response times, right? And I talk a little bit about that when it comes to email or DMs or booking or confirmations or people asking questions. You want to think about that when you are saying, okay, I'm going to be responsible for social media. I'm going to be responsible for the phones. I'm going to be responsible for following up on clients who've already had their services done. Okay, how are you going to be able to do all that and have appropriate response times? You also want to set expectations within your organization and say at the bottom of your booking link, if there are any questions, if we don't get back to you in 48 hours, please feel free to call us. We try to respond within 24, but if it's beyond 48, please don't hesitate to reach out. The same thing with your DMs. If you're not someone who's actively on social media, set up an automated response so that if people are reaching out and asking questions, that they know how to further contact you in a way that will actually reach you and that you can respond. Like I said, set those expectations. Let people know when and how long you will be responding. I uploaded a new communication policy for all new clients. And it was important for me to even go back with old clients and say, hey, this is my communication policy, because I want to set that expectation that, yes, I'm available. Yes, I'm here. But if there's a moment or a time where I'm bogged down in work or I'm unavailable, please know that I'm going to get back to you in this amount of time. And then you want to talk about reminders. You want to make sure that there are reminders set up for you, that you have things on your calendar, that if your booking calendar needs to integrate with your business calendar, so you know how many clients are coming in and out of the business, as well as you don't want to have that in a way that you're not looking at it, that it's out of sight. You want to make sure that's something that you're completely aware of and that you're completely in tune with, because it's important. And you want to set reminders for yourself. And you also want to make sure you're reminding your client on an automated way to make sure they understand when their appointment is, when they should be following up, and all of those things. So process management, you set the process, you create it, you figure out what it is that you want to do, you implement it, and then you have to review it. To me, you implementing a process should be something that from the creation to the implementation shouldn't take weeks on end, right? If you are doing focusing on your phone management, you need to make a decision. Okay, I want to make sure that I created a Google number. This goes to my personal phone. I'll be able to answer it X, Y, and Z. Once you implement that process, then you need to look at it after 30 days and say, is this effective? Does this work? How many calls did I miss? How much time did I spend on the phone? Is this worth my time? I'm also responsible for all of these tasks. Is answering the phone something that I should be doing as someone who's leading this business? Very, very key. Make a decision. Some of us fail to make decisions and we sit there and we're like, okay, I'm going to start this email list, or I'm going to, start my social media page, or I'm going to start posting. And then we forget to implement the process. The process is not just the creation. The process is actually doing the things, the postings, answering the phone calls, and then taking 30 days to look at the information from a social media aspect, looking at the analytics, from a phone aspect, looking at how many calls you're receiving, if it's worth you outsourcing, right? And we'll kind of talk about that. Then you want to look at what the experience is like. If you're working with a client and you're also answering phone calls, someone's not going to feel good about that experience. So you want to make sure that you're communicating the experience from the entry point to the brand to the closeout, right? So if you're saying, I want my clients to have this luxurious feeling and feeling experience, you answering the phones in the middle of their service is not a luxurious experience. You trying to deal with email while they're trying to check out is not a luxurious experience. So you want to make sure that you're communicating even with your clients, your vendors, your customers, your employees, what the experience is from the entry point to the brand, which is basically them coming, engaging with you, to the closeout. So when they're leaving reviews, right? You want to make sure that you are communicating that entire process throughout. And that's so important. And then that goes into the follow through. The follow through, complete the process. You want to make sure that you're actually going back to review. You're actually understanding these are all of my entry points. These are all of my customers. These are all of the processes and workflows and all of the things that we're doing. Implement, now review, and now follow through. Ask your clients, right? Let's talk about, how did you feel? Was this an easy experience for you? Did you have any difficulty booking? How did you find us? Where did you get our information from? Were you comfortable, in wherever you may be servicing your client? Ask those questions. And that's a part of the closeout process. You want to make sure every client gets a 5-star experience every single time. When you're new, there are going to be bumps in the road, and you may not always be able to give a 5-star experience, but you can make sure that they have a 5-star customer service experience. So if there are any failures in the process, if there are any gaps, if there are any delays in communication, you want to circle back and say, hey, I realize that we failed to get back to you and answer your questions. I sincerely apologize. That is not how we want our customers to experience our services, but please accept my apology, and here's a 10% off code for the next service that you receive. That's still a 5-star experience, right? You may not have had a 5-star experience from the jump, but now you've had a 5-star customer experience that supersedes whatever happened before you were able to close out the process. Consistency. People hate consistency. People want to do one thing and get results. You don't get results unless you're consistent. You have to be consistent for more than a day, more than a week, more than a month to truly see if something is effective. The 30-day out is just a review of what is actually happening. Then you want to look at 60 days. Okay, I made some adjustments. Did that improve the process? If that didn't improve the process, let's go back and see how we can continue to tweak things to make them better. But consistency will outdo any bad experience. If I come to your brick and mortar, or if I come purchase something and I get the same quality experience, consistency will outdo bad experiences every single time. Like I said, being customer service centered. Your customer pays your bills. Your customer is the person who's going to be out there marketing for you. Word of mouth marketing is so much greater than the paid marketing. You're going to get more clients. Your business name will go further if someone is speaking it in their circles. And so you have to make sure that your experience is customer service centered from every entry point, from every service that is provided, all the way to the closeout. And like I said, continuously reviewing the process. You need to do that internally. And then sometimes you need to step outside of yourself and have someone else who's a little bit less objective come in and say, hey, this is what I've experienced. This is what I see. And this is how you can improve the process. When evaluating your systems, you want to think about the time. How much time is this process taking up if I do it myself? Bookkeeping is something that a lot of us struggle to do, but essentially it costs to outsource that process. But when you begin to weigh, I'm spending hours on bookkeeping, I'm spending hours on accounting. If I could essentially outsource that service, that would save me 4 hours that I could do income generating activities. And that's the focus. In those 4 hours, I could generate more income that then would pay for outsourcing those services. So sometimes it's not just about money. You want to look at the time that things are taking you. You want to look at the energy. I don't like certain aspects of the business. And so I have to make sure that I have a support, a team, people who are able to pick up where I don't like to expend my energy, or if something is just too exhausting. That is something that's really key and important to understand how to use your energy. Some of us are really good at certain tasks. And so we need to focus on those tasks that we're really good at as a business owner. Sometimes we're doing everything, but eventually we will be able to offload some of those things and do what we're really good at. You do want to look at the cost. Cost benefit analysis is so important. If I outsource my phone service, it costs me $200 something a month to outsource that. I've never missed a phone call. People call all times of the day and night, surprisingly. Never missed a phone call, and I'm still able to get back to them in a timely manner. If I'm up, I'm able to respond. If it's the next morning, it's still within less than 24 hours, right? So you want to look at the cost. Okay, yes, you continue to take the calls on your personal cell phone while you're also doing a million other things. But if you're able to offload that one activity, save you time, save you energy, is it worth that $200? Understanding that is really, and yes, you want to keep your business lean. You don't want to outsource everything, but you want to look at the cost benefit analysis. You want to see if the process can be duplicated. As I grow, as I add different services to my business, I have to understand that if someone's calling my office and they're looking to speak with me, do people feel comfortable speaking with the receptionist, right? If I'm looking to book bigger speaking engagements, if people are looking to reach and speak with me, are people going to be off put if they reach, a answering service and not me? That's something that I have to consider, right? But duplication of the process is completely important. So if you are opening up more than one business, if you're opening up more than one site, you want to make sure that everything that happens at place A can also happen at place B. Talk about outsource through this whole thing. Outsourcing is key and important. You can delegate, and as most of us are healthcare workers, you can delegate those tasks that are, not within your scope, right? That are within the scope of the virtual assistant, or that within the scope of whoever you hire to help with certain processes. Outsourcing is key and critical to saving time and energy and even money, because you're not wasting your time, you're not wasting your energy, and now you're able to focus on income generating activities. And then you want to look at, is it necessary? Are these things necessary? Look at the cost of it, look at the time, look at the energy, look at it's duplicative. If you're able to use a different system, if you're able to consolidate some of the things that you're doing, instead of using 5 different systems, if you transfer it over to this one system, you're now able to centralize the process. Know that, understand that, look at that. And you can only do that by continuously reviewing and evaluating your process. That was a lot, right? We talked about the importance of systems, and systems is the foundation of automation. Everybody wants to automate, but they don't want to take the steps of building the systems and the workflow. If you understand how things work in your business, then it's easy for you to outsource and automate the entire process. Even if you're hiring a virtual assistant, they may do whatever you ask them to do. But as things begin to grow, you want to be able to have a list of tasks that they should be doing consistently. You want to have a list of things or processes of how to answer your emails, how to check your DMs, what's important and what's critical to you. You want to look at how to build and implement effective systems, right? What that looks like for you, your team, the type of business that you have, and how you can make it make sense for you without splurging or costing you a lot of money. And then you want to evaluate the effectiveness. Does this work? Does this not work? The time, the cost, the energy, all of those factors are really important. Automation only happens when you have a strong system. Systems only happen when you create an efficient process, and efficient processes only happen when you understand and know your business. I hope this was helpful. I would love your feedback. I try to send these out once a month because I want you guys to be enriched. I want you guys to really fully understand what it's like to be a business owner. I want you to be able to dig deep and to understand, if you can be successful at this, you can be successful at anything. I hope this was a great presentation for you guys. You know how to reach me. You know the things that I do and provide. I love, love, love connecting with you all. So hope to talk to you all